Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. Shadows in the Night, Chapter 1. Written and read by Jennifer. Before I get started, I'd just like to say one thing, and that is, in the extreme unlikeliness that I mispronounce any names in this story, I do apologize. The wolf whined in pain. She had been beaten, injured, and left to die by humans. Humans were afraid of her kind, especially after the night hordes had been unleashed. She was a dire wolf, and dire wolves were bigger, stronger, and smarter, with a longer lifespan than normal wolves. This led humans into believing they were demons, when of course they weren't. Only the Speakers and the Belmonts ever showed her kind any respect. She remembered her mother telling her and her siblings stories about them. However, she would never get to tell stories to her own pups. She lay by the side of the road, waiting for death to claim her. The sound of a wagon approaching came to her ears. She closed her eyes, hoping the humans would give her a quick death. The wolf woke to find herself in the back of a wagon, with her wounds treated and dressed. Panic set in, and she began barking and thrashing about, trying to get to her paws, but finding her legs unable to support her. The panic soon ebbed away. She wasn't dead, and her injuries had been treated. True, she was in the back of a wagon, but she wasn't restrained. "I think our friend has come down," came a female voice. The wolf looked up to see two humans, a man with dark hair and a woman with red hair. Though she had never encountered either, her mother had described the symbol of the Speakers and the crest of the Belmonts, both of which she could see. She rested her head on her paws. She didn't make a habit of trusting humans, but she would trust these two. For now. Sypha reached down and stroked the wolf's soft blonde fur. Trevor had told her not to get attached. Once the wolf was better, they were going to have to let her go. She was a wild animal and belonged in the forest where she could run free. But even he had to admit that the wolf was just what they needed. After what happened at Lindenfold, she was a welcome distraction. By the end of the third week, the wolf's injuries had healed, and Sypha and Trevor were forced to let their friend go. However, they both could have sworn they saw her following the wagon at a distance, and every morning there would be wolf tracks all over the camp and evidence that something had dug up the food scraps and slept under the wagon. One night they were awoken by the sounds of a night creature. Mixed in with it was the barking and growling of a large dog. Or a wolf. "It's our wolf," Sypha said, after they had gotten out of the wagon to find the wolf entering their camp, dragging a dead night creature behind her. "She must have smelled the thing and knew it was dangerous," Trevor said as the wolf deposited her kill at their feet. "She could have run off and saved herself, but she chose to protect us." The wolf was still there the next morning, frisking about the camp and barking happily, waiting for breakfast. They gave her some bread and cheese, and as they were preparing to leave, she surprised them by jumping into the back of the wagon as if she had been doing so since she was a puppy. "Looks like she's coming with us," Trevor said. The wagon continued down the road, this time with the dire wolf looking out over the side, tail wagging and tongue hanging out of her mouth like a happy dog going for a ride. "We need to give her a name," Sypha said as she pet the wolf, "if she's going to stay with us. Even the horses have names." She gestured to Michael and Gabriel. "What do you suggest?" "How about Artemis? In Greek mythology, she was the goddess of the moon and the hunt." "Sounds perfect." "Belmonts, Belmont, and Artemis." Artemis barked. "All right, girl. Artemis, Belmonts, and Belmont." "I was right," Trevor said. Gabriel threw a shoe, and Michael's about to lose one. They both have to see a blacksmith. "At least we managed to make it to town," Sypha said. The blacksmith wasn't hard to find. No matter the size of no matter the town, city, or village, it was always in the same place. Can I help you? The smith said, coming to greet them. Our horses needed to be reshoed. Trevor said, It's late. The smith said, I can get to it tomorrow. In the meantime, I have a couple of nice stalls they can stay in. Artemis jumped out of the wagon and looked around a little uneasy. This was the first time she had been in a village. Her mother had always told her to stay away from them, and towns, cities, and farms. She looked up at Sypha and whined uncomfortably. It's all right, girl, Sypha said, petting the wolf, her hands brushing against the collar Trevor had made so people would know that Artemis wasn't just some wild animal. We won't be here long. What a beautiful animal, the smith said. She's a dire wolf, right? She is, Trevor said. We found her injured on the side of the road, and she decided to stay with us. Trevor and Sypha kept Artemis close as they left the blacksmith. It was clear she was uneasy, and it was best to make sure she didn't bite anyone, even by accident. The villagers watched them, clearly as uneasy having Artemis there as she was being there. Get that beast out of here, someone said. The headman came towards them, extremely angry. That wolf, he said, pointing at Artemis. We don't want it here. She won't hurt anyone, Sypha said. She's actually very friendly. It's a wolf. Wolves are dangerous monsters. Trevor and Sypha didn't bother to tell him that they've seen and fought worse monsters than a single dire wolf. Look, Trevor said, trying to diffuse things. We'll be leaving tomorrow once our horses have been reshoed. The headman seemed to accept this. But that beast can't be allowed to wander the village. I'm sorry about this girl, Trevor said as he tied the other end of the rope to the wagon. We have to follow the rules of the village. Artemis pulled at the rope. She had never been tied up before. We'll bring you back something to eat from the tavern, Sypha said. Artemis whined as she watched them cross the street to the tavern. She then started barking and kept it up until her friends returned with food. Hours later, she began barking again. Artemis, stop barking, Trevor said. You're going to make the villagers even more mad at us. She smells something, Sypha said, looking towards the entrance to the village. Artemis continued barking, straining against the rope until she was almost choking herself. The noise awoke the village. Shut that wolf up, the headman said, storming up to them. She's trying to tell us something, Trevor said as Artemis growled at the entrance of the village. A horrible shriek came from the forest. Night creatures were approaching. Giving one final pull, Artemis managed to break her collar. Still barking, she ran to the entrance of the village and continued to bark. The night creatures didn't come any further, but it would only be a matter of time before they realized Artemis was a single wolf. However, it gave Trevor and Sypha time to organize the villagers, much in the same way Trevor did the people of Greshet. The whole time they kept praising Artemis and telling her to keep the night creatures at bay. Once the defenses were set up, Trevor called Artemis back. The dire wolf stood between him and Sypha, growling at the village entrance. The night creatures entered the village, blocked off by 2 walls of ice. However, they refused to move forward, not even after the exit was sealed off and the pikemen moved forward, and not after they were burned with holy water. Growling and barking, Artemis ran between the 2 walls of ice as if baiting the night creatures. And it seemed to work. Enraged by the wolf, they charged forward and right to their deaths. You did such a good job, girl, Sypha told Artemis after the dead night creatures had been dealt with. Not bad for your first battle, Trevor said. Artemis wagged her tail, happy at the praise she was getting. The next morning, Artemis stayed close to her friends as they restocked their supplies. However, the villagers didn't look at Artemis as if they didn't want her there. A group of children ran up to them. Can we pet your wolf? The oldest asked. Of course you can. She's very friendly, Sypha said. Just don't touch her face. That's where her teeth are, Trevor warned as the children began petting Artemis. The children laughed as Artemis began licking their faces, her tail wagging. What's her name? One of the children asked. Artemis, Sypha said. Hi, Artemis, another child said. The children petted her for a few more minutes before helping Sypha and Trevor gather the supplies they needed and carrying them back to the wagon. The blacksmith came up to them as they began putting the supplies in the wagon. "Both your horses have been reshoed. I also noticed that one of the axles on your wagon was starting to break, so I fixed that as well." "Thank you," Trevor said. "How much do we owe you?" "The wagon's no charge. I also fixed this." The blacksmith held up what looked like Artemis's collar, except it looked brand new. It was fairly obvious that he hadn't fixed the old one, but made a new one. The leather looked new, and with a new buckle attached to one end and the symbol for the speakers in the center. Artemis wagged her tail as if she knew the collar was for her. "You didn't have to do that," Sypha said. The blacksmith just knelt in front of Artemis and put the collar on her. "It's a thank you," he said. "She's the one who woke up the village in time to defend ourselves." Once the supplies were on the wagon, they were ready to go. Artemis looked out of the front of the wagon, her tail wagging. "Safe travels," the blacksmith said, reaching out to shake Trevor's hand. When Trevor shook the blacksmith's hand, he felt something cold and metal in his hand. Looking, he saw that it was another tag for Artemis's collar, this one looking like the Belmont family crest. "I saw the crest on your shirt. It can be attached to the other tag. Consider it a thank you for helping protect our home," the blacksmith said. As the wagon pulled out of the village, Artemis looked out, wagging her tail, the sunlight glinting off her new tags. "You did a good job back there, Artemis," Sypha said to the wolf. "We should start training her," Trevor said. Then she can help us." Stories soon began circulating about the wolf that saved Lupu village, and with each telling, it got more exaggerated. By the time it reached a certain castle above a certain secret hold, the stories stated that the wolf had fought off the night creatures on her own. Of course, the protector of the castle knew the real story, having heard it from a group of speakers who had been in the area. "It looks like Trevor and Sypha and their new friend are making quite a name for themselves," Alucard said to the two pairs of bright blue eyes looking up at him. The two dire wolf pups, one a black male, the other a copper female, had become a part of his life not long after the twins betrayed him. Trefor and Morning Star, as he had named them, had lost their mother to a hunter and were too young to be on their own. Alucard knew that the pups would never be able to live in the wild after he raised them, but they were good company and took away the sorrow of loneliness and the sting of betrayal. "Come, Trefor, come, Star," Alucard said, turning towards the castle. "It's time for dinner." The two pups followed him as if he were an adult in their pack, which of course he was. Alucard liked having them around. They may not be able to talk to him, but he could talk to them, and they made the loneliness and isolation a little more bearable. Okay, before I sign off, I'd like to just touch on one more thing, and that is, if any of you out there have a fanfic or a short story that you would like me to do a reading on, please be sure to send it to either my Facebook page, my Tumblr account, or my Facebook group. I will have the link for all three in the description section. A couple of things to keep in mind. First off, please be sure to include your name and the name of the author if you are submitting somebody else's work. If I have no one to credit, I will not do a reading. Second, please be sure to keep them short. I like to keep these videos between 15 to 20 minutes. I will go a little longer if I have to, but my camcorder does stop recording after 30 minutes and kicks over to another video. I will cut them up into parts if they are a little too long. And that is solely just so I can fit them in without it kicking me over to another video. Please be sure to keep them clean and appropriate. I will clean up or gloss over any words or parts that I deem are inappropriate for young and sensitive audiences. But if there is way too much, I just won't do a reading. If it's a holiday fanfic or short story, please submit it 2 months prior to the holiday and be sure to include the name and date of the holiday. This is to ensure that I can get the fanfic up 1 month before the holiday starts. And the name and date is just basically because I don't know when every single holiday happens. Finally, please be honest. If I learn that someone has submitted something without the author's permission, I'll not only remove all corresponding videos, but I will no longer accept any fanfics or short stories from the sender. Okay, as always, thank you for watching, and have a very nice day.